Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community, we went racing with some E-Class cars. The first race would go to the Limerock alternate circuit, a track that I'm starting to quite like this one. I've kind of got the hang of it, and I am quite liking this layout. Unfortunately, someone will get turned around further back in the field and cause all sorts of chaos. In the background, the few of us leaders that could escape it got away quite nicely. I may have got bounced out a little bit too wide. My country boat was very, very fast around here, but admittedly I got tangled up at the start. Cost me quite a lot of time. And the Beetle had made its way to the front. Another car that had made it through the opening melee and was doing pretty well, that you probably wouldn't expect, was the Cadillac Limo. This thing was actually very, very competitive in these opening laps as he came down towards turn one. He got up the inside of the Beetle, while the Limo, in the background, a Honda finds out why it's very important you don't move around in the braking zones. The Cadillac, despite being very large and very heavy, actually has a decent amount of power, was pretty damn fast in a straight line. So yeah, he's struggling a little bit through these first corners, got the Beetle all over the back of him, but the Limo is quite hard to overtake, and then whenever we get near a straight, it has the acceleration to simply pull away from the cars around it. See, now the Beetle's too far back to try anything into this next section. So yeah, the Limo was actually doing pretty well. Perhaps less surprisingly, another car doing well was a Ford Escort. The Escort got onto the back of the Limo, and he was trying to find a way past. As I said, Limo was pretty damn tough to overtake, because whenever you got out of a corner, the Limo would drive away. This time, though, was perhaps the Ford's best shot, as the Cadillac dipped a wheel on the grass. That made him slow off the corner, and the Escort has a look up at the inside because the Limo is so large. Trying to get past done, you have to brake really, really late to kind of fire your car up the inside of said Limo, and the Escort couldn't quite do it. And then they come up a hill, there's a bit of a straight, and the Cadillac gets away again. I mean, all this time, the Escort has got to start worrying about the Mazda that's catching him behind. There's a Datsun as well, trying to join in with this little group as we round the final turn. Yes, the Escort can perhaps be a little faster into that final turn. Now we've got a nice long straight for the Limo to bugger off in front of him. Yeah, the Limo was really holding its own. You can see here the leaders hadn't really got away from this group of cars, and it's kind of just sort of a long stretched out line of cars down the front straight. You can see the Datsun behind them. I was fighting with a Ford F100 as the Cosmo gets it a little wrong into turn one. Easy mistake to make. Try push a little too much, get a wheel on the dirt, and yeah, got himself in a bit of trouble. Further back, well, as I said at the start, there was quite a bit of chaos. Quite a lot of cars took damage, had to go to the pits, meaning that outside the top group of cars, there wasn't a huge amount going on. This Fiat tries to go the long way around turn one, can't quite do it, runs a little too wide, dips a wheel on the grass, gets away with it though as the BMW runs wide on the exit of the corner and gets a big slide on, so the Fiat can get the overtaking manoeuvre done. But yeah, as I said, lower down the order, it wasn't particularly great in this particular race. As we came to the closing stages of the race, the Fiat dropped back, and it was the Beetle that led the way but was being charged down by the Limo and the Escort. Limo tried to go around the outside of the final turn but didn't quite have the grip, had to sort of let off the throttle. That allowed the Escort to make it 3 wide as we go down the start-finish straight. Limo's got the best straight line speed, but he's stuck on the outside. The Escort can get across to the inside and block from the Limo, and the Beetle gets back ahead of the Cadillac. But this is a section of the track that the Beetle was very, very fast on. The Beetle had huge amounts of grip but was lacking the power, so he retakes the lead from the Escort through these corners, gets a bit of a slide on the exit, is slow off the turn, and now comes the power of the Ford. Ford is up alongside as we come down towards this chicane. The Escort's on the inside. The Beetle has to take a wider line. That gives space for the Cadillac to get alongside, and while the Cadillac hasn't got the pass done just yet, the straight line speed of that Limo was enough to see it alongside and past the Beetle by the time they got into the next chicane. Certainly having that little bit of straight line speed could be useful around this track. And that is how the top two of this race would stay. The Escort would take victory. It was only a small margin of victory over the Limo that did very, very well around this track, while the Fiat would come home in third. The Beetle, I think, made a mistake and then got tangled up with the Datsuns and was fighting rather heavily for position on this closing lap. Just pushed his luck a little too much. I think he may have got the car a little bit unhappy, couldn't get it turned to exit of the chicane. That allowed both the Datsun past and the black Datsun got past the blue Datsun on that sort of run. The Beetle was then out of position for the final corner, and me, who had had a disastrous race, being caught up in everyone else's accidents, made the most of an opportunity. My country boat got the second fastest lap here. I was only beaten by a Renault Alpine, and then it was only by a couple of thousandths. I think I was in the 1 minute 9.7 or something around here, which is stupidly fast for E-Class. My Ford was really, really good. But yeah, I got a little bit unfortunate in that one. Second race would go to the Hockenheim short circuit, a track that always tends to produce some absolutely fantastic racing. And since we were all driving relatively slow, relatively easy to drive cars on the most part, was hoping that we would get plenty of close action here. One thing you did have to be aware of, the inside curb at turn 1 will throw cars up onto two wheels. In the opening lap, quite a few cars sort of electing to escape out wide as sort of little bumps happened here and there on the inside of the track. It was quite a lot of cars trying to fit into the same part of, or sort of piece of tarmac through that turn 2 section as we run down this back straight. It's 3 wide between a Corvette, a Subaru, Brat, it's a Ford Deluxe that in the end just runs out of grip and runs out of road. There's an MX-5 involved there, kind of get caught on the middle. The Mazda there with followings on the outside manages to make the most of it actually and get up a few positions. Yeah, the first lap at Hockenheim often can be a little bit frantic, and certainly further back it was absolutely crazy in these opening laps. The Ford Deluxe led this group of cars. I think this was outside the top 10 even perhaps, or around the 10th place mark. The Deluxe was leading from a Brat. There's a Celica, there's another Deluxe in here, an MX-5 is a Transit. The Brat gets on 2 wheels. I think it's the Celica got even more on 2 wheels and gave the Brat a little bit of a nudge. Not much can be done when your car's up on 2 wheels, so that's why you see the Subaru with a little bit of off-roading over there. The Celica's trying to have a look at the inside of the Deluxe, but the Ford has got good straight line speed, so it's proving quite difficult to overtake as some cars are on 2 wheels across the outside curve there. Celica's now under pressure from the MX-5 into turn 2. Toyota goes very, very deep on the brakes, trying to defend from the Mazda while also looking to see if he can maybe get around the outside of the Ford. He couldn't quite do it there. Now we're back down this back straight. The two Fords are catching up to one another. Fiesta is trying to join in this little bit battle. Mazda's on the outside as we run up towards these next. These are the faster corners, a little bit more difficult corners to get an overtake done. The Deluxes are having a fight. The Mazda didn't quite fancy having a big dive up the inside. Fiesta's trying to go around the outside. Toyota gets a fantastic drive and goes past both of the Deluxes. Like that overtake just comes out absolutely nowhere. Such a better run out of the corner. And the Celica dives up the inside of both of the... I mean, that's such a tough corner to go too wide through. But to find a space on the inside for the Toyota to get past is really well done. The Deluxes are fighting back, though, with their straight line speed to the hairpin. That means that he can get the place back from the Toyota. And the Fiesta's caught up and is getting involved. It was fantastically exciting watching back there. The front was pretty good as well. An unusual trio of cars were leading the way. Subaru Brat led from my country boat, and I was having to defend really rather hard from a Land Rover. This Land Rover Defender was a really bloody good car. I knew my Ford was likely to struggle here. This was a little bit more of a power car, and while the first couple of sectors I was okay, I really struggled through this final sector, and sure enough the Land Rover was all over the back of me. I was having to go super defensive around the second to last corner, again into the final turn, making sure there was no space for the Land Rover to sort of stick his nose up the inside. I had the straight line speed. When we could get onto this start-finish straight, I could get just a little bit of a breather back to the Defender, which meant into turn 1 he was never really close enough to have a look. But you've got to be careful. Run too much on the curb through turn 1 and the Ford will be a long way on 2 wheels. So yeah, I was having to be careful down there. The Land Rover was so much better under brakes as well. We come into turn 2, again going defensive, but it doesn't matter. The Land Rover's got so much grip and such good brakes. He tries to stick it all the way around the outside, and he makes it work as we go down the back straight now, side by side. I've got the straight line speed. I can kind of gain a little bit on the Land Rover, but I'm stuck on the outside down here, and I don't have the grip to be doing that. If I could have kept it there, it would put me on the inside for the next corner. I don't have the grip. In the Ford, I had to yield the position in the end. I slightly snagged the wall on the outside as well. I was hoping if I could get a good run through here, get a good run perhaps down to the hairpin, use the straight line speed. I was too far back though. The Land Rover was far too fast for me, which is a strange thing to be saying. I will be honest, but there we go. I mean, further back, this sort of group of cars, it's spread out a little bit from the early stage, but you can see they're still all right together. This time we got a Corvette against the Ford Deluxe. Again, like, as I said, the Land Rover, you know, was doing really, really well. The Ford Deluxes were actually holding their own against much more sensible cars. So, yeah, well done to them. This one here, though, finds himself stuck on the outside as we come up towards turn 2. It's not really an ideal place to be sitting. Yeah, you know, you saw the Land Rover go around the outside of me, but that's when he had a lot more grip. And, yeah, the Deluxe can't quite keep it there. But, again, he's got the straight line speed as we come down the back straight, trying to sneak his nose up the inside down here, but it's not quite enough. The Corvette is fast enough, and the Deluxe may have had a little lift as well to make sure that he could get it all sorted out. Corvette runs very, very wide, almost brushes the wall. That then gives the Ford a chance again as we run through this next very, very fast corner. Corvette goes defensive. The Celica's now joining in this little battle down towards the hairpin. Celica has a dive up the inside of the Deluxe and gets a really good run. That's a dive up the inside of the Corvette as well as they leave the turn. But the Corvette is on the inside for this second to last corner. Celica can't really do a huge amount through here other than just kind of sit and wait and try and find a way. At another corner, unfortunately for the poor Deluxe, stuck a wheel on the curb. That spun the car around at the final turn. Easy thing to do with any number of cars on a track like this. You can see they're going nose to tail down this start-finish straight. There was a huge amount of action going on at Hockenheim, as there often is, and as you always hope with this particular circuit. At the front, I was struggling to keep up with these cars. They were just too fast on the final sector. But the Brat was now coming under increasing pressure from the Land Rover. Land Rover really very, very fast around this circuit. The Subaru was having more two-wheeled issues than I was through the first quarter. I was having a fair few of my own. That put him on the outside up towards turn 2. The Subaru, though, was better through the corners than I was, so he could kind of hold his own when up against the Land Rover. He keeps it around the outside of turn 2, and now they go down this back straight side by side. These two much more evenly matched in straight line speed, perhaps a little bit in favour of the Land Rover, you know, much closer than me and the Land Rover. Defender gets a little bit of a slide again. This is just giving the Brat hope. He keeps his car, and still, you know, there's for about half a lap now, they're still going side by side around this next really quite fast corner. That is a tough place to be stuck on the outside, but if you can keep it there, you're now going to be on the inside for the hairpin, which is where you want to be. Again, the Brat's trying to sort of maintain his position, and again, the Land Rover's got the grip to keep it alongside, and still we go almost an entire lap side by side for these two vehicles up towards the second to last corner. My favourite of the overtaking spots. The Land Rover is up the inside. The Subaru is just about run out of grip, run out of momentum. He can't keep it alongside the Land Rover. The Defender can finally get across back onto the normal racing line and would take the lead. It was very valiantly defended by the Subaru. At the end of the day, though, the Land Rover just had too much grip for the Brat. While that was going on, there was a big scrap going on for fourth place. The Mazda had been looking for a number of laps to try and find a way past the Civic. He just couldn't quite get past. Again, the Civic was defending very, very well, but it was in the closing stages of the race. The Civic left the door open. The Mazda kind of had a little half sniff. It was a half chance up the inside, and that was enough. It was enough to compromise the Civic through the final turn, and that's all the Cosmo needed as they run onto this start-finish straight. The Mazda ducks out of the slipstream as they run down towards turn 1. Turn 1 is one of the tougher overtaking spots on this track to get things right, and the Mazda jumps his way across the curb, but it does put the Cosmo up into fourth place. Yeah, they had a fantastic battle as well. There was an awful lot going on in this race, which is fantastic. It's what you want in a versus community, but it was also by far the weirdest podium we have ever seen in any race ever, near enough. Certainly of an open class race. A Land Rover Defender would go on to take victory. I think it'd take fastest lap as well. Bloody fast car, this one. Around Hockenheim. Subaru Brat would take second, with my Country Squire in third. An unusual podium, certainly. I was getting caught by the Cosmo and the Civic by the end of the race, but they ran out of laps to do anything about the Ford. So, yeah, I think we have well and truly done the weirdest podium in versus the community history. Certainly, you know, with an open class race, but yeah, that was a bit of an odd one. Bloody good fun though, I gotta say. And again, you know, I could have looked through the replay. There was an awful lot going on throughout the field. There are very few cars circulating on their own. Everybody had somebody to either be trying to overtake or trying to defend from and so on. This Honda got a big sideways moment going through that section. I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's probably still front-wheel drive the way that he saved the car. But yeah, he got the back end unsettled. Now he was coming under threat from the Corvette. Corvette going to the outside at the hairpin. You've got to be careful though, as the two of them tangle slightly on the exit. The Ford Deluxe comes from nowhere. I think he very much surprises the Honda doesn't quite realise the Ford is on the inside, the 3 wide almost, up towards this second to last corner. The Corvette gets past. The Ford is looking a little bit on 2 wheels across the curb on the outside of the corner there. While the Ford has got the straight line speed, it's not quite a long enough run. You can see ahead the Fiesta and Celica were nose to tail. The Deluxe tries it, but just doesn't quite. It's not quite a long enough run to the finish line for the Ford to get past the Honda there. It was a fantastic race. Hockenheim so far hasn't failed to disappoint yet in Forza 6. Yeah, very, very good fun racing there. The final race, we would go to the Silverstone National Circuit, and it was very much the American cars that ruled off the start line. I came from 4th, or I can't even remember now. The Bel Air equally sort of down a couple of places down. Easily get to the front of the race here. No problem. We just had the power, the acceleration, of course being rear-wheel drive, the traction over some of the front-wheel drive cars. I also had the brakes. My car wasn't particularly built as a power build as such. It was kind of maximum tyre widths and whatever else I could fit in the PI, if you like, for E-Class. And that was actually working really well for the country boat, whereas the Bel Air was perhaps technically the more powerful, slightly faster car. I actually had half-decent cornering grip, which is why I could run so fast on the likes of Limerock. Further back again, we had some incredible racing. This is almost 4 wide into turn 1. We've seen 3 wide just about fit through here before, but that's 4 wide into that first corner. That's, yeah, well driven from everyone. I was watching the replay, I was like, that's not going to end well. That's really not going to end well. And somehow everybody got through that cleanly. The RX-3 coming out to the best of that group. That's an incredible amount of cars to fit into the same piece of tarmac, and everybody get through all of that safely. But there we go. Now they're still fighting on. The RX-7 was struggling for straight line speed. You can see the difference between these two Capri builds. The white Capri here, much more of a straight line speed. I mean, you can visibly see the difference in ride height between them. The green car, I'm assuming, running race suspension, while the white car here obviously gone for some more power parts, so faster in a straight line, but that means you'll be struggling more through the corners. The RX-7, while terrible in a straight line, had an awful lot of cornering grip. He's around the outside of almost both of the Capris at the final turn. It was, again, a similar story with some incredibly close racing going on throughout the field. I was leading the way, and I had a rear gunner in the form of the Chevy Bel Air. We were hoping to have sort of American domination at this Silverstone track, and it should favour our cars with the long straights around here, or longer straights around here anyway. However, the Bel Air was struggling a lot more through the corners than I was with the Country Squire, and the RX-3 had just too much grip, and he was being swiftly followed by a slightly sideways Volvo. The Mazda could go around the outside of the Bel Air and then get to the inside on the final turn. The Volvo was trying to sneak up the inside, but they did have to contend with this Chevrolet straight line speed. The Bel Air was a very, very quick car in a straight line, so as you leave that final corner, the Bel Air can get back up the inside of the Mazda towards turn 1. But then we have the grip of the Mazda is coming back again round the outside. That's not the easiest of corners, certainly, to hold it around the outside, but the Mazda's got so much grip in his car that he can make that move. Stick the Volvo's back, there's another RX-3 at the back of this group waiting to join in the fun. And the Bel Air's thinking about having a dive through here. He just doesn't have the brakes. The Volvo's up the inside. The RX-3 is coming as well. The Bel Air just didn't quite have the handling. Even with all the straight line speed, he could kind of keep up and make a nuisance of himself in the field, but was having trouble fending those cars off. We had another very, very quick defender in this one, kind of got marred down in battles with this RX-3. I think this track perhaps not quite favouring the four-wheel drive defenders as much. Too many straights, really. Still impressively fast in a straight line. And again, you kind of get the idea of just how crazy this race was. While the Defender and RX-3 here fought for position for most of the race, you got the RX-7 very quick through the corners, struggling with his straight line speed and so on behind, and a huge group of cars. And still, this was the massive tussle for third place now. The orange RX-3 just managed to break away a little bit from this group, but now it was the Volvo RX3. Capri was catching up to join in. The Bel Air with that mighty straight line speed. He goes up the inside, down this back straight, tries to keep himself alongside. Of course, no match for the grip of the RX3, but the RX3 is kind of making a nuisance of himself for the Volvo. That leaves a space. The Bel Air tries to get up the inside, gets a twitch mid-corner, can't quite catch it in time, and unfortunately that would end up with him in the side of the Volvo. I think they both went round, and the Bel Air and Volvo would drop through the order. It's, when racing cars like these, as close as they were, it was bound to happen inevitably. The Bel Air waited for the Volvo, as any respectful driver should, and they rejoined in this group. So, they weren't quite battling over third and fourth place anymore, but they still found themselves in this fantastic train of cars. All sorts of different vehicles were fighting it out in here. Lancia Fulvia against a Fiat 8V as we come down the back straight. The Fiat very much more of a straight line speed car, plenty of speed in this, but you can see through the corners was struggling a little bit more. There's a very sideways something in the background. Not quite sure whether that's a Fiat. 131 Abarth going very sideways in the background. He was fighting with the Bel Air, with the Volvo again. The Fiat was still here trying to have a look for a way past the Lancia. The RX-7 was involved in this group as well. This is perhaps not a great track for handling cars, certainly with these very long straights. The Fiat's trying to have a look up the inside at turn 1, but certainly if you are in a handling car and the cars ahead of you are battling, you can make up a lot of time on them, because they're battling, they're taking defensive and attacking lines, they're compromising themselves a little bit through the corners, and you can make the most of them. So the RX-7 was keeping up with this group, and this group was keeping up with the Land Rover and Mazda ahead of them as they continued to fight over position. In the background, they were too wide. The Mazda tries to go around the outside of the Fiat with more straight line speed or acceleration. He probably could have done it, but he's still stuck out there with just no real go. The Fiat much closer this time around as we come down the back straight. Fiat's going to go to the inside, try and outbrake the Lancia, but it's quite tough when the car you're racing has got better grip and better brakes. He gets through initially, but can't stop it. Back end of the Fiat's very slidey. The Lancia takes all of the avoiding action to try and avoid running into the back of him, and the Mazda's up the inside of the pair of them, just sort of spots that opportunistic overtake as they're all squabbling for position, uses the handling of that Mazda and gets past them. At the front, I had a much duller race, in all honesty. I got to the lead on lap 1 and vanished. The Ford Country Squire was incredibly good around this track. It was good enough handling through the corners, so it didn't lose too much time to the likes of the RX-3s that were giving chase, and it had an awful lot of straight line speed. Honestly, this was a really very good car for Silverstone National. I was a little disappointed about the outcome at Limerock. My car was definitely very fast at Limerock, which is perhaps a little surprising. Hockenheim, I struggled in one sector, but at Silverstone, the Country Squire was a really rather dominant car, a really good car to drive around this track. I was hoping to get a victory. Well, I wasn't quite expecting it, though. I was very pleased to have got a win in the mighty country boat. It was, a really rather good vehicle. These guys carried on their fight. For the entirety of the race, this group, I think this was over about 10th place. These cars found themselves continuing to argue. The RX-7 was trying to find a way past the 8V. They had a little bit of a bump coming down the back straight, and Karma instantly punished the RX-7 with lots of oversteer through the final turn. He got a wheel on the curb. That kind of spat the car sideways. The Fiat, there's nothing they could do to try and avoid that one as the Mazda sort of squirmed its way across the track. But now comes the straight line speed of the 8V, and as they run up towards the finish line is absolutely neck and neck as they cross the line. The Bel Air just out-dragged the Fulvia in the background of that as well. Incredibly close finishes for these cars back here. So close I had to go for a photo finish on this one. Now, from what I know, Forza judges the finishing on when the wheels cross the line, not front bumpers and bodywork and so on. You can see the 8V's wheels are just about on the line there, and the Mazda's just a tiny little bit behind. That's not very much, though, between those two cars. Yeah, Silverstone and Hockenheim, an awful lot of fun. Those two races were really rather incredible good fun. Limerock, not quite so much. It was unfortunate because of an accident on the first lap, and or first corner. So that happens sometimes in racing. But E-Class cars, very good fun to race. And some really bizarre cars were going really rather quickly around these circuits. I mean, you wouldn't bet money on a Defender and a Country Boat winning 2 of the races here, but they were really quite good cars for their respective circuits. Anyway, that is it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 29th of October. We are going to be doing a single make race. We're going to be running completely stock Alfa Romeo 4Cs. If you want to sign up and take part in that event, then you can go to our forums. There will be a link in the description. Find the FailRace Versus the Community section, and you will be able to sign up in there. But that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.